Weidner here, Reality Check. Thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe and the bell and all that stuff. And let's build up the show. Without further ado, I'm just going to get going here today. About 2.5 years ago on this show, we had Jonny Enoch on for the first part of The Storm Before the Calm. And if you go back and listen to that, it's incredibly prescient. And what's going on here is that Jonny is in contact with someone I know who is a deep insider. And every once in a while, he downloads onto Jonny, and then we get him on the show, and then we get the download. And the reason that we keep doing it is because we judge the predictions. And if they come true, then we now know we got something consistent going. And so we go on with it. If the predictions turned out to be faulty, then we probably would no longer do these. But the predictions all turned out to be almost 100% true. And a lot has happened in the last 2.5 years. So that's pretty incredible. So Jonny's just had another download. We're going to have him back, and we're going to hear what he has to say. And I've heard it already. It's pretty incredible. Jonny, how are you?
I'm great, Jay. Thanks for having me back. It's always nice to be here on Reality Check. And this is the fastest growing YouTube channel there is these days.
I think so. Jonny has a show on Gaia, of course, Mystery Teachings, really good show. You got to watch it. I think you can sub Gaia for 99 cents in some places. So you can get a whole month and watch them all for less than $1, right? And it's like, it's definitely what you want to do. It's the best show on Gaia right now, and by far. And so everybody Gaia and watch Mystery Teachings with Jonny Enoch. It's right on.
Thanks,
so Jonny.
Jay. You know, it's great because, you know, we incorporated your teachings into the show. We mentioned the Great Cross of Hendai, and I talk about Jay Weidner, I talk about alchemy, astroarchaeology. You know, we get into the really in-depth esoteric stuff, which I know you've been doing since day one.
Yeah, that's why I like the show so much. I wish and encourage Gaia to do more programming like this, because yeah, the channeling is all fine and everything, but you know, a deep dive investigation show is still the best. And you know, that's what I build on Gaia with Hollywood Decoded and all of that. So I encourage everybody at Gaia to continue this kind of programming. It's really interesting, and you know, it's based on true stuff, which is nice.
I'm really,
right, Jonny?
Yeah, no, I'm really proud of what we accomplished there with Sid Goldberg and Drew, who was helping us produce. And the one thing that's great about this show, that it was a lot of work to make, because everything on that show had to be backed up with a reference. So, you know, whether it was the Secret Teachings of All Ages, Elvis Levi, Dion Fortune, if it was Madame Blavatsky, or wherever we got it from, or, you know, stuff that I got from the other side of the world, you know, from Muhammad translating something, we back it up with video evidence, with pictures. We wanted to bring you around the world, into every religion, every culture, decoding the mystery. So, you know, and that's what's exciting about what we're doing here today on this show, Jay, because I want to give a bit of preface before we go forward. You know, looking at this from one angle is that the same way we look at the ancient past, and I know you spend a great deal of time exploring the ancient past. I mean, when we look at the pictures and bookshelf behind you, you know, that there's all sorts of recollections on the ancient mysteries. We also wonder about the future, which are these dimensions that are moving in motion out in space, you know, that they're evolving before us. And I want to tell people before we go further in this discussion that we have to think about the mysteries of life, that each of you watching this has a soul, and nobody out there taught you to be you. You know, we have a reason that we're here. You know, we have this very short life that goes by in the blink of an eye with these experiences. And really, there's nothing to fear. You know, moving forward in the world, you know, we have to look at this miracle of life, is that if you think about even the miracle of when two cells come together, you get this idea of, in the process of when you think you were made, with gazillions of sperm that were rushing towards maybe 2 or 3 eggs. You know, that process that came together with these 2 cells, 2 different types of DNA coming together. Each time this happens and all of that gets reabsorbed, there's a universe that's being created. You know, there's all these atoms there. So the miraculous aspects of each of our existence, you know, when we take that and we realize what we're going through all right now as a whole, as a collective, that's the beautiful thing about life, right?
Yeah, you mentioned Dion Fortune, and early on in my research, I was probably 20, maybe 21 years old, and somebody recommended Dion Fortune to me, and I could not crack her. I read her and I couldn't do it, and I thought I must be stupid. There must be something wrong with me. I cannot understand what this woman is trying to tell me, right? And then I went camping one time up at Mendocino, the beach in Mendocino, California. I had a nice big fire going, and it was night, and full moon was rising. And I pulled out the book and I started reading it, and I understood everything that she was trying to tell me. It was this incredible moment where I finally understood why everybody was, recommending Dion Fortune to me, because I realized that this woman had insights into reality that almost nobody had. And then I plowed through all of her books in like 2 weeks and read everything. But you have to keep at it, is what I'm saying. These things, concepts are difficult at first to grasp, but don't give up, because if you keep going, you're going to have those moments of revelation that are going to make everything understandable in this world. And that's why I like about your show is you're bringing all this disparate threads in and kind of sewing a new jacket out of it. And it's great. And I really think you did a great job. That's all I can say.
Hey man, I appreciate it. But I always tell people I'm not very smart. I just got good teachers.
Same here.
So you're one of them, my friend. You're legendary what you do. And I really think
we all stand on the shoulders of giants. And
absolutely. With that being said, how we come across the people that we do, the folks that we talk to that are our teachers and our mentors and the people that help us. When you get out there, as long as you've been doing it, or even the years I've been out there doing this, trekking around the world and going through bookshelves and old libraries and talking to people, you pick up people along the way that it really is true what they say: when the student is ready, the teacher shall appear. Yep. So you do get help. You get help when you're in a teacher position. I mean, you've been producing for so long, you've been writing, you have been behind the scenes for many years. You get people behind the scenes that don't want to be known, that have very special access to things, that are willing to give you a nudge in the right direction. You get to meet people that are more than human. And that's the only way I can describe this particular individual that helps me. And you know who I'm talking about.
I do, and I agree.
It's like you're not talking to someone that's fully human. And when you're in the presence of that sort of being, it's very interesting, because it's almost as if all your thoughts can be read. They have an ability almost like talking to a human Google. And I don't know whether there's been upgrades done or something, but anything you ask down to the molecular biology or where we're going to happen, it's very very interesting how it happens. But all I can say is it's a benevolent force. And what I take away from this is that we have to respect that there is a universal principle of sovereignty in our universe, that we need to respect the free movement and this ability for all sentient and non-sentient beings. And if there's anything that you and I discussed today in what's happening right now, where we're going, it's not necessarily that you and I are endorsing it. It's not that we love it. It's not that we want to go for it necessarily. It's just that there's so many people out there that want to give this message that there is a savior figure or a messiah or something that's just going to come and sweep everything away and it's going to make it all go away. And, we are on this trek to evolve and grow as we walk the path. So it's better to know what's happening, right?
Well, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because, if I see a car accident and then I describe the car accident to you, that doesn't mean I support car accidents. It's just I'm reporting it as an observer. And this thing about the Messiah, yeah, in my film, The Last Avatar, you know, I prophesized about the return of Kalki Avatar, who would come not to teach but to destroy. He was the destroyer of worlds, and he's the
Yes.
male version of Kali. And what I think is going on is we are all Kalki Avatar now. It's not just embodied in a single person. It's all of us who are awakened are now the Kalki avatars, male, female, whatever race, whatever religion. We are all the ones who are the agents of change. And if you're going to be an agent of change, you've got to understand what's going on, where we're headed, so that you can make, circumstances that will benefit you. And that's really one of the reasons why I wanted you on. I want this information to go out to people, not to scare them, not to make them afraid of the future or any of that. I want them to be 100% aware of what is going on so they can take whatever actions they want. We're not here to tell you what to do. We're only telling this very important person who's been right over and over and over is saying right now.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because there is a lot of activity going on here right now. And we have a lot of stuff that we can get into. We're going to talk about the earth changes that are happening right now and where that's going. We're going to talk about the shifting of power in the world. And, one of the first things that maybe we can talk about that's very exciting we can get into today is that I've been told that there's a lot of traffic passing through our solar system. And I know you heard this before, Jay, but it's a galactic superhighway because we're located right in the middle of nowhere. This is the boonies. And how it's been explained to me is that all the good stuff starts about 10 light years from here. And it starts to get very busy when you look about 40 or 50 light years outside of the Earth, heading towards Alpha Centauri in Sirius. But if you go about 500 to 1,000 light years from here, I've been told there are countless highly advanced civilizations that are there. And one of the things I asked him, I said, where do we fit into the big picture? And he told me, we are smaller than nanobacteria on a dog's ass.
Yep.
But the other thing is that he told me that, in the not so distant future, we're going to have space travel that can accomplish this very easily. And essentially how we're going to do it is that we're going to have the ability to manipulate an electromagnetic field. Now, whether that's done through harmonic oscillation, it's going to envelop the whole vehicle and go around it. And this is going to allow time, gravity, and linear proportional distance to fold in on itself over and over again, so it can transpose and reconfigure anywhere it wants to go. But essentially, what we can look at with this, I was told, is that if you go back to the times of, let's say, Genghis Khan, he was the first one that really gave us airmail. If you think about, they'd use these pigeons that they would go in these short bursts. The pigeon would go from town to town very, very quickly. The Syrians later used this. The Romans used it. They used it in World War I and II. This is sort of like how the space travel is going to work. It's going to move in that sort of way, just reconfiguring it. So a lot of people like to think, hey, we're going to get this warp drive and it's just going to be one continuous, just like blast. It's basically going to be folding itself up like pizza dough to go to any position we need to go. Have you heard this before with how we're going to change space travel?
Well, I mean, actually, Boscovich, the mathematical philosopher hundreds of years ago, talked about how you use electromagnetic fields to fold and unfold space. Tesla was a big fan of him, and Tesla knew all this too. So I think they've known about this since the 50s. How to fold space so that you don't have to pass the distance. In other words, you're not really going from Earth to Mars, you're folding space and bringing the two closer together in electromagnetic sense. So that is the future. And And yeah, I would say they already have it. In fact, the secret space programs had it for years. They're just going to make it.
Absolutely. I mean, they have this technology already. You know, we're just getting prepared as we slowly start to move into that direction. In fact, what I have been told over and over again is that we already have a timeline that in about 25 years from now, we're already going to have these vehicles that are almost, the best way I can describe this is like cruise ship vessels. So you're going to have about 100 cruise ship vessels at a time. And this is already part of the plan. It's already being prepped. These vehicles, you know, they have bedrooms in there and main areas where you can go out into, you know, restaurants and everything. It will be very comfortable conditions. So you'll have about 1,000 people at a time, and about 100 of these will leave. And these are going to go off world. And for some folks, this is going to be like a vacation. These are going to be the first people that get to experience this. For some folks, they're going to want to look over there like it's like colonizing. You know, they're going to be over there getting deals on a new life on a new world. And for others, they're not going to have a choice. I don't know if you caught that in the news recently, but Bezos, who is one of those, you know, technocratic insiders, he's out there already saying, you know, there's going to be people that will have to leave. They're not going to have a choice, right?
Well, yeah, he said that the Earth is not going to have any people on it, and you'll be visiting it like you visit Yellowstone or, you know, the Grand Canyon, and you'll be living off planet. In other words, a type 2 civilization is what he's saying. Which and just
exactly.
what, a month ago, I did a whole show on how we're merging into a type 1, and then we're going to quickly move into a type 2. As soon as we get to type 1, they're not going to waste a second. It's going to be, once we hit type 1, we go to type 2, and type 2 is what you're describing. And I don't think there's any way back from this, folks. I don't know if I want to live in that world, but you know, I don't think there's any way back. Just like there was no turning back once Columbus discovered, you know, the New World. There was no turning back, no matter what was going to happen. The tragedies of colonization and all the rest there was nothing you could do to stop the flow.
That's it. I mean, we told people on the previous shows that there was going to be strange weather coming up and flooding. And, you know, in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and the outskirts of there, the flooding has been so bad through British Columbia, Canada, on the news. The whole world has seen it. The highways are broken.
The port is down. The Vancouver port is down. They're not taking any container shipping right now because the railroads are washed out.
They can't do anything. Yeah, the infrastructure is destroyed. It's the same on the east coast of Australia. They're having the same issues. And this isn't because of global warming. You know, people would love to say, hey, is this weather warfare? This is actually cycles that are going on with our sun. We're having a lot of solar activity. You know, this is when you look at how we move through space with a wobble and our spatial coordinates. People forget that our star is communicating with our Earth. We're having these tremendous shifts, and there is going to be more strange geophysical effects that are going to happen, especially during this decade and over the next few decades. There's going to be parts of the world that you're not going to recognize anymore. They're going to get a little warmer. There's going to be places in the world where you're going to see the polar vortexes shifting. There's going to be stranger and stranger weather patterns, and China, Europe, Canada, America, everybody knows it. That's why they're eyeing up Africa, right?
Yeah, the jet stream used to go like this, but now it's going like this. So it's bringing cold air down to Texas and then taking hot air and moving it up into Canada, but back and forth. You can't tell when it's going to happen and when it's not. So British Columbia went from flooding to snow to flooding to snow, and now they're flooding again. And the stream of rain that is coming into British Columbia is going out 1,500 miles into the Pacific. It's incredible to see it right now. And, you know, I feel sorry for those people. They're just getting killed right now.
It is. It's strange. It's very strange. Our good friend Bob, who lives in Mexico, he invests in a lot of stocks. Hi, Bob, if you're watching. He invests in a lot of stocks and commodities, and he's been looking at grains and really watching the shifts of our energy movements and everything, where that's shifting to, because that is also something that people are going to notice massive changes. We have to talk about the white elephant that's in the room that's coming. This is going to be so big. It's going to almost overshadow anything you were worried about before. You might have been worried in 2019 and 20 about, you know, the vax and all these different things and what's happening with your commodities, all that is going to shift, and your attention is going to go pretty soon into China and what is going on with Xi, right?
Yeah. We got to be really, really worried about what's going on over there right now. And the fact is that, the guy that runs our country appears to be completely, beholden to them.
His headquarters are now in Beijing. So, this is the thing. When you see what's happening, is that you have Xi now, he's starting to wear that Mao uniform.
Yes, I noticed that.
And this is coming up to a great anniversary. If people remember the atrocities and how many people died under Mao in the millions, you're looking at Xi coming into there. Now, remember what Taiwan is. We've discussed this before. You and I've discussed this. In fact, I think people should go back and listen to the shows you did with Danny Esterlin. Those shows were fire. And I wish you would have Danny Esterlin back on. But
I will.
Yeah, now that would be a great show to ask him what's going on right now, what he thinks is going on over there. Because when you see this, again, they're not a country, they're a civilization. They've been around for over 6,000 years. They don't have a president, they have an emperor. And people don't realize that in Taiwan, those are the Chinese, those are just the democratic Chinese. And then the other side, we do have these 5 parts of China. We have these autonomous provinces that people don't understand, but you also have this side where what he's doing now, Xi, he's just made it so displaying wealth is now illegal there. He's moving into full Mao mode. And what he was just talking with the current guy that runs the United States, in that meeting he's basically asking, if you see the strategic moves that are being asked, hey, give up control of Australia, New Zealand, these areas where they depend on a lot of things, iron, all that sort of stuff, but also where Australia sits. There's some very interesting things in Australia. People, they might not realize this, but you look at all the places in the world that have a country within a country. I know you know this. You've been saying this for years, that you go to the Vatican, that's the religious headquarters of the world. That's a country within a country, right?
Yep.
Washington, D.C. You got the banking district in London, but the same as in Australia. You have this country within a country, the largest secure underground facilities in the world, Pine Gap. There's some very interesting things there. But the other thing is that China looking strategically at Taiwan right now. Then you have other areas. We mentioned this on a previous show. You got to keep your eyes on Alaska. That's one you definitely got to keep your eyes on. And you also got to keep your eyes on that cooperation with China as well as with Russia. So the interesting thing that we have going on is that right around 24, 25, it's going to get interesting. The next 5 years, you're going to see stuff that's going to shift with Russia. And you see the ties being cut with NATO. Watch what's going to happen with Russia in Eastern Europe. And you're already seeing this movement happen right now. If you look over by Ukraine and Russia and start to see the changes and start to see the restructuring of the United States, the Americas are being weakened on purpose right now. If you see that, it doesn't make sense whatsoever. Do you think any person that watches this, I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on, what side, left or right, if you're even in the center, does anything make sense that's being done politically at the moment?
It does if you want to perform the controlled demolition of the country, then it all makes sense.
So yeah, when you get into that world, it's very interesting because we start to see that there's a major changeover in world power. So we're going to see a restructuring of that, and it's going to be quite shocking for a lot of people. I don't think people are quite prepared to see what that's going to look like. But there are things that are being done to kind of offset that. I don't know if you saw this, but the EU just announced today that they are going to be matching China with billions of dollars of infrastructure upgrades around the world. And when they say they're helping other countries that have lesser means, like Africa and places like that, again, that's because, like you and I discussed, when you look at these resources and crops and things that are going to be disappearing more and more, Africa is going to be the place for it, right?
Yeah, the Sahara is going to come back. in the new coming Maunder minimum. The rains are already returning. There's lakes that haven't been formed in the Sahara that are for 1,000 years that are coming back right now. China has got its eye on the whole area. It's buying it up because it knows the rains are returning. And we know that the UN did a satellite survey about 20 years ago of Africa and found out where all the metals and resources are underground. And so Africa has been kind of targeted, actually, for colonization.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that's another thing we discussed on a previous show, is that you're going to see more and more that we're going to find when we talk about meat and agriculture, that's going to be completely changed. By the end of this decade, you will see this, muscular piece of animal cells that have been made into lab-grown meat, and it's going to come in these cubes. And the materials to make this are going to be coming from Africa, and it's going to be done out of these areas. But that's going to be where we're headed more and more. Look who's buying up all the agricultural land. You got all the billionaires out there buying it all up. All of a sudden, it's just disappearing. It's vanishing. So there's a great movement over there to move towards this. And again, there's a number of reasons for this, that there are people saying that, we're going to have these vast, problems within the climate and everything happening on there. Then there's, just a means of just controlling it. So where do you think that sits? Is it out of necessity or is it out of control?
Well, the people in the United States, the technocrats, they want it all to return to the wild. So there's a saying in philosophy that civilizations start out as forests and end up as deserts. And that's very much true. So what they're trying to do is reverse that, trying to find a way to reverse that flow. And so what they're doing is they're depopulating, putting people into centers, urban centers, and then what they call the wilding. They're creating the wilding, which is everything's going to go back to the wild. And they're using certain things to get people to go back into the cities. It's not currently working. However, the exact opposite is going on right now. People are leaving the cities. So it's going to be interesting to watch how they do this over the next 5 to 10 years. But yeah, that's their plan. Their plan is to and eliminate farms. That what they want to do now is what they call vertical farming. So it'll be indoors, under lights, hydroponic, and stacks of buildings. And they'll grow all your food in vertical farms. And that's what Bill Gates is buying up all the land for. He's not returning those to farms. He's letting that land that he's buying go. He's letting it go fallow. He's not growing any food. And that's the plan. The plan is to move the United States away from being a net food exporter and to becoming a net food importer.
Absolutely. And this is what I've been warned about, that over the next 15 years, there are going to be dramatic ups and downs, dramatic shifts that are going to be taking place. Even if you look in areas like England will go through shifts and changes. All the areas where the extremely wealthy folks in the world like to stay, over in Lincolnshire and all those places, there's going to be a period where even those places are going to be questionable. We will go through a period of tension that's coming up with Israel, as well as when we look over at the places like Turkey. Turkey has the largest army in the Middle East, with something like 1.5 million soldiers that are going crazy. So when we look at the tension that will take place over the Caspian Sea, that pipeline that's there, when we see that the changes that are going to happen with our energy and oil crisis, there will continue to be in this decade, there will be a period where we do go through that's just a transition. And I want everyone to know that it's nothing that you should be fearful of or worry about. But that's why we're talking about it now, that we will go through a period potentially where there are food rations, where there are some fuel shortages. But this is all part of this transition. You want to talk about the Kardashev scale and transitioning to a type 1 civilization. Well, these are all the growing pains that you go through. And there are going to be some power struggles. But the good news is what I've been told about this is that these folks that are doing this, whether you look over at the Americans, we've had Tesla and Bezos, racing to get to space. And a lot of people are criticizing this. Hey, why are they doing this? Well, Elon Musk has other motivation. He has had the same briefings as some of the folks at the top have had, that there are some potential geophysical events that are going to take place that will affect, certain areas that will trigger certain fault lines and places like that. Maybe the one over by the Juan de Fuca Strait, or heading over into these areas that are going to be a little dicey. So he has his motivation for selling all his properties and heading off planet, trying to save the human race. But it's never going to devastate us too much to that point. But everybody's looking at space, even the Russians, even Russia, China. China sent out that hypersonic missile the other day. Did you see that?
Yeah, Russia knocked a satellite out. But we do have that problem of space debris. So there are some serious problems with going into outer space, because these things are colliding in with each other, and they're going around at 40,000 miles an hour, like faster than a bullet. And there's a lot of debris up there. So they're going to have to come up with something that cleans that up before they go out into space.
We have our own ring of Saturn now, made of junk, space junk, that's going around the Earth.
Very dangerous.
Yeah, they're going to have to do something to clean that up. But what I was told is that before things get too crazy, that we are going to be looking out into space, because I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, but I know that everybody will often say, when we listen to, let's say, Dr. Stephen Greer, he says that everybody out there is friendly, and it's not that anybody that comes here might be malicious from out there, because it's most certainly not what people picture it is. I could clear up some of that, but there's some of the guys that come here that might have a more aggressive management style. Let's just say that. They'll come here and they might have other intentions. So before we go too crazy turning on each other, we're going to be, looking out to things coming out there, if that makes sense. Not only in our own conquest, but we're going to be looking at some things that could potentially be coming our way in more of a defensive pattern. So that's something that we will look at as well. But we have much more to go through before that happens. I was also kind of told there's a guy, I won't name his name on your show, but I believe you talked about him a great deal before, and your listeners are very familiar with him. And let's just say he's got blonde hair, and he blonde, longer hair. He made a comment before on a recent interview I saw him on, where he said that there were certain types of gray ETs that were putting people inside of blenders, basically blending them together and eating humans like a smoothie. And that there are these sex cults run by certain reptilian overlords and stuff like that. Bottom line is that there's two things you have to keep in mind with that, is that the folks that are visiting us, if they have the ability to have interstellar travel, they are vastly more intelligent and advanced and sophisticated than us, and they do not need to use human beings as food or as an energy source. They have the same means that we will have in this next decade. In fact, it already exists to have nanoparticles, as we've discussed, and we will have more of that, by the way, these nanoparticles that can unlock the mitochondria in your cells, so you could use the nitrogen and the hydrogen from outside of your body for energy. So it makes eating and drinking optional. Think about a vastly advanced civilization. They're, light years smarter than us. So they're coming here. They don't need to make human smoothies. Let's just say that.
Yeah, that really, just so you know, he's not saying that person who said that has been a guest on this show, because he hasn't, and he will never be on this show. But I did produce a show at Gaia with this blonde-haired dude who is saying that the Dracos are going to make smoothies out of us and eat us, and it's really pretty irresponsible as well as very dark.
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable when you think about all the stuff we hear about ETs out there. And that's not to say that all ETs are easygoing. I mean, some of them lack the basic emotions. Like, I've worked with people over the years, as I know you've talked to many people, Jay, who have had experience with, let's say, these various grades. and whether it's the Zeta Reticula Greys or what variety of Greys. And some of the Greys they've had these experiences with, they found themselves on an operating table, and the Greys were looking over at them almost emotionless and cold. It's not that they were being malicious, though. It's just that they didn't have the same human empathy, perhaps this group, that when the person was on the table, they were terrified and they were paralyzed getting something examined or cut out of them. You know, they weren't getting, you know, a complimentary cup of tea and a foot massage, you know?
Yeah, and it's also interesting how the abduction phenomena seems to be wavering now. There doesn't seem to be as many people talking about it as there used to be, say, 20 years ago. So that's curious as to why that would be.
Things are changing, but I mean, again, you and I have discussed this before, that ETs are walking amongst us every day. You know, if you want to see them, go on Venice Beach, go to Las Vegas, you walk around, chances are you have encountered them many times before. You know, they can most certainly, you know, blend in with us all around. And that's another thing that I was told, very interestingly enough, by our insider friend, is that when you think about planet Earth, a lot of people have to, you know, open up their mind a little bit to the inhabitants that are here. So we have all different types of folks that are sharing this real estate with us. And the Earth, as you see it, is, you know, the spaces that you're in, you might see all this empty open space and think, hey, we're the only ones here. Well, it's just like you go look out into space, look up into the areas that we call dark matter. You think that there's nothing there. There's all kinds of resonance and frequency and other life forms existing. We're just on the denser outer areas of space where we are in our neck of the woods. So all around us, we have all these different types of beings and people that are existing here at different resonance and different frequency. Even for those of you watching this at home, you know, you're sitting down, you turned on reality check, you're in your living room by yourself, you know, you're excited to, you hear Jay's voice coming on again, and you think that you're the only one home. But right now, the space that you're sharing could be a major complex. It could have all kinds of other life forms that are there right now. And that's why sometimes you've heard these strange stories of someone walking down a street and all of a sudden, you know, they're transported somewhere else, or they've seen something. Have you ever encountered that, Jay?
Yeah. In fact, I just heard a story recently of a guy who got a concussion at work and he had to go to the hospital for a couple of days. And he came back to his apartment and he was making himself a dinner, and he looked over and there were entities in the apartment, and he couldn't understand what was going on. And then the entities realized that he saw them, and they became really interested in him because he wasn't supposed to see them. And eventually he just had to ignore the fact that he could now see all the entities, because if he actually interacted with them, they would become attracted to him. So it's a strange story, but I believe you're right. I believe that there are invisible entities all around us, including probably in our rooms right now.
It's incredible. I mean, there's so many mind-boggling things, like how many thousands of atoms of oxygen molecules are being breathed in right now, or how many, if you think, when we go into our planet and we, you know, we think about, or how many thousands of atoms of oxygen are being breathed in. What when we look around in this space right now, this area of our room, there's how many beings do you think are looking at us at any given time?
Many. I think we're swimming in an invisible ocean filled with trillions of critters of all sorts. And you
Absolutely.
can see it if you have the right kind of photography equipment and you know what you're doing. There's a woman, Dorothy Isret, I think her name is, and she's dead now, but she could photograph these entities, and she saw them with her own eyes. So there are people who have these abilities.
Yeah, you know, I've been told that there's certain limitations in our, you know, our DNA structure, in us, in the limbic reptilian brain, that we have this point of reference. And again, when we talk about that quantum multiplicity and lineal subjugation, and how, you know, we're aware of this particular point in time, that if we didn't have that, it would be so overwhelming. It would be like we're being deluged if we're not attuned to this one very limited band of frequency we have. It would be like we're being deluged with information about the hundreds of thousands of life forms interacting with us and how vast it is. It really is like a vast ocean. So for the sake of our sanity, we have this here, but it's not just those beings that can come in and out of different resonance and those folks that are here, because they're here as well. It's just like, they're inhabiting different areas of our solar system. There's these, we talk about densities and things like that and dimensions. But what I've also, been pointed out to before is that, that kind of vacuum effect that you barely get if you put your hand in water and you take it out right away. It almost creates this mini bubble. Well, if you go down into the very depths, very, very deep depths of our oceans, that you can get these kind of bubbles that just won't intrude in on themselves. They'll just stay like that. And there's ways that these electromagnetic fields can be created to create these artificial atmospheres that some of the folks that are coming here, we have not only ones living in subterranean areas as far as ETs go, but there's some that are living under our oceans. And, there's all different kinds of interactions that we're getting. So it's really kind of interesting that when we start asking questions about who's really in charge, who's running the show, and how many cooks do we have in the kitchen, I think there's many.
I agree. I think it's a multiplicity of things going on. And, I actually believe that people who don't have that filter of just a small band of frequency understanding, I think they become schizophrenic. I think the influx of the high strangeness just becomes too much for them, and they have a psychotic breakdown. So you kind of need that.
That's the thing. A lot of these beings that are coming here are vastly more intelligent and evolved. They don't get involved in our species in particular. We're kind of being nudged along into this progress, but this is where we're going, and what's going to happen is going to happen to us very quickly. And I want people to know that this is going to change very, very fast. And one of the things I would say with this is that if you think about our Earth, let's say we say the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. A day to the Earth is nothing. And people are really silly if they think that we are causing the climate change. I mean, there's always things that we can do better to take care of our Earth. I mean, we don't have to pollute our oceans and dump garbage in our rivers. We do have to take care of it. But, when we look at CO2 and what carbon does, let's say we stopped all the carbon in the world right now. Let's just say you stopped all of it. You didn't produce any more. You're going to take like 12 to 1500 years to get rid of it all. And number one. Number two, the Earth is the safest it has ever been, where we are right now. There's all this kind of talk that we have that, things are, shifting because of us. No, the things are shifting because of the sun cycles. One thing that you and I have discussed that's been brought up to me is that the worst year in human history was 539 AD or CE. And you remember you and I were discussing that the last little while about how that's the year when all the volcanoes started to erupt. Do you remember that?
Yep. Yeah, I agree with you completely. All this gloom and doom is just it's not true. First off, we need CO2. Our forests need it. Our plants need it. I have to inject CO2 into my greenhouse because to get the plants to grow. So this idea that CO2 is bad is just silly and ridiculous. We're actually going into a CO2 plunge right now, which could be dangerous and it could cause desertification of the planet. So I just don't know. I mean, I agree with you. You talk to anyone my age and they'll tell you that the temperatures are exactly the same as they were when they were kids. There's been no difference. It still gets cold in
10,000 years, we're only 2 degrees warmer. Yeah. So, the crazy part about this, and when we see this, there's all this kind of talk about places that are sinking and ocean levels rising and everything. Indonesia, the reason the places are sinking over there is because they built on faulty areas. So that's... Okay.
So actuaries are the guys that do percentage risks for insurance companies. And what they do is they look at a building or something that's going to be built, and they do a percentage risk to determine whether what the insurance is going to be on the building. There's no insurance company, no actuaries have turned down any buildings being built on the coast in America because they're afraid of rising tides consuming the buildings. So the actuary's very job depends on them calling this correctly. And there's no building that's been denied, and because the oceans aren't rising. If you go to San Francisco, the ferry building, it was built in 1889, I think, and they have a line in the concrete, which is the water level at its highest peak, and it's still there, still the same exact level, hasn't risen at all.
No, it's crazy. And, you know, the thing is, again, when we talk about the earth and how the earth observes, the earth goes through cycles and purgings. But, you know, when we go back to that year of 539 CE, we had these 18 months of darkness. You know, look at these volcanic eruptions. Look what happened in Indonesia, Iceland. It started affecting all over Europe. It started affecting Egypt. Crops died. People died. It was cold. It was dark. 18 months of gloom and doom. This was the worst year in human history to be alive. You didn't want to be alive then. And it's interesting because you go from that period and you move out into even 549. And we get that period, that's the King Arthur period. And you pointed this out the other day. You said, well, that's interesting with King Arthur, because what did you say?
Well, the King Arthur myth is that when Guinevere betrays King Arthur for Sir Lancelot, England dies. The fields no longer produce crops. The cold comes. There's never a sunny day. And it's only when they're reconciled that it all comes back to life again. And it's about that same time period, about 2 years. So it's almost as if the King Arthur myth is inculcating this period of time when the darkness came and destroyed all the crops and everybody starved. And, you know, it was a really bad time.
It was a terrible time. Countless people died. There was famines. People didn't know what the hell was going on. You think of it, they didn't have our science that we have today either, or the way of looking at these things. So it was a very frightening time. And you look at these periods, when you look at the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages, the periods, if we didn't have some of that stuff that went on, we'd already be zipping around in space already, you know, having space tours, and we'd be much further ahead. But that set us back tremendously, including times like when the Roman Empire fell. But think about this, think about what the earth sees. So the earth is really in control. You want to talk about Gaia, like the Gaia is an earth mother. Gaia is calling the shots on what happens on the surface. And so that a day to Gaia goes by very quickly for what might be 1,000 years for us. And so think about the ETs as well. Wherever the ETs are coming from, there is a principle we look at, something called time dilation. And the changes of when you travel through space. So you have groups that could have much longer lifespans than us, that they move very differently and have more patience to look at these sort of things over periods of maturation. So you might say that we've been looked at as a great project. With that being said, you know, there's something else interesting that I'd like to talk to you about, is that when we look at this subject of royal families, and you and I have discussed this, we know some people that are close to the royal family. I know some people very close to them and some other groups, and they're very keenly interested in this, and know the Queen Mother, Her Majesty, is not a reptilian. She's a very intelligent person, very keen in these things, has a very advanced type of intelligence. I do believe that we're talking about ancient bloodlines here, that some of these groups also might have, you know, ET lineages, if you want to say it. That's why they're all keenly interested in this. But what's really interesting in that is that you might also say that there is a special type of knowledge in a lot of these wealthy families, that they know who their ancestry is. The group that type of period in history we call Atlantis, that these groups out there, and I have to be very careful when I say here, but these groups out here, in their own symbolism and in their own interest, they have a vastly greater amount of information than we all do. And you might say that some of those groups out there that control the media, they control the universities, they control this, they are holding back certain artifacts and information for themselves. Because, you know, if you told everybody what was going on, let's say in the Sahara or what's under the Gobi Desert, everybody would be rushing out there as fast as they could. But you keep certain guys on the payroll in Egypt and you get certain things brought to you that it works out in your advantage. I was interested to find out that when you and I have talked about the monoatomic gold before, right?
Yep.
I by the way, I want to give you a shout out, Jay, because I don't know if people caught it when Jujata and I were last on your show and we were talking about the secret esoteric meanings to the G in Freemasonry. And this isn't, you know, the average Blue Lodge Mason or Master Mason is going to say, no, there's only 3 meanings to the G. They're going to say it's God, Gnosis, and geometry. That's Blue Lodge Masonry. If you want to go into more esoteric, or you're getting out there, you're going to say that it is generativity for regenerating the body, immortality, gravitativity for the law of attraction, but also G for germane. And you said another one the other day.
Yeah, gold.
Gold. I love that
Gold.
because I never saw the G for gold before. I want to give you a shout out for that.
Yeah, but God is gold with the L removed. The L is the lead.
Incredible. I was told that, you know, monoatomic gold, you know, we've talked about the white gold in Egypt before. We know they were eating the cakes. But the interesting thing about that is this came also right from people that were around Lawrence Gardner and those who are really getting close to this thing, is that when Sir William Flinders Petrie went there in 1904 with the British Royal Society in the Sinai, and he discovered these large pits of the white gold, there were also nearby discovered a few places of where there were other areas kept of this. And this was taken away for certain groups. You know, this was the original stuff they found. And the interesting thing about that is that the real stuff goes for about $40,000 an ounce, I was told. That's the going rate. If you go on the internet, you're going to see Orame and Oramus, and you got to be careful with a lot of that stuff out there because it will plug your kidneys up, right?
You'll get metallic poisoning. You got to be really careful.
You do. You absolutely do. But there are folks out there.
Why I don't talk about it that much, by the way, Johnny, because I'm worried that somebody's going to go out and buy a bunch of bad stuff and get hurt. So we're talking about a highly alchemical process that you need an alchemist to perform. So you can't just buy any white gold.
Absolutely. I mean, and there is stuff out there that people don't understand. There's going to be stuff in, let's say, the next 25 years that you and I are going to discuss, and we're going to get into it. That's going to blow people's minds. It's going to be like spirituality and technology and everything is coming together. There's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to change for us. You're going to realize that concepts like, I think that maybe we're 100 years off from learning about some of the stuff in the secret space programs. Like they have the ability, like, you know, James Cameron got a lot of downloads for the movie Avatar. When you see them doing that stuff, I have it on very good account that technology or one very similar to that exists. So you can navigate even into parallel universes, that you can navigate to other places where you're projecting your consciousness into another vehicle, that there is this transposition of consciousness or even consciousness being transferred into another body. You kind of see that hinted at in that TV show that Bezos produced called Upload. I remember you watched it and we discussed it before. Well, let's just say that some of these groups potentially could be using this sort of technology. And this is, you know, we're going to be going into stuff that's like that and even more bizarre. But
there's a book about it. It's called The Red Lion, and it's called Dark Alchemy. And it's what you're basically doing is that you're transposing your soul, your life force into another being. And in alchemy, the elder alchemist would transpose his soul into that of a young woman. So if you go to the cathedral at Nantes in France, there's a statue and the old man is on one side and the young woman is on the other. which this is an example of what Johnny's talking about.
Yeah.
So in other words,
it's very interesting. If you think about, maybe you go back into a place like Egypt and you see boxes at the Serapeum, or you see areas where they're using these granite boxes to put this energy through it, and different things that start to give us clues where we could have had a type of consciousness technology. We start getting all kinds of ideas about the Ka and the Ba in the Ak, and what could be done with the Ka. It's kind of hinting at that already, which is very strange. But
it is.
You know, where we're headed with this too. I mean, one subject I know that always gets very controversial in the comments section every time we talk about it is when we talk about these things. You know, getting into those little things that, you know, poke us and jab us, right?
Yeah, the jabber always gets us in trouble on YouTube.
It always does, you know, but I don't know how to put this to any other way. Do I give a disclaimer to people that I'm not out there endorsing them? You know, I'm not the guy that's, you know, putting them out there. I feel the same way as all of you. We're all having to face this thing, but I will tell you, but I have been informed about them, as we always do. You know, we were talking, you know, when we first did those initial videos about this, we said that there's going to be immunity passports, that certain zones would be restricted, that there'd be multiples of them, and how this M, R, and you know, the first letter of the alphabet works. So we got into that, and you know, now I want to discuss it a little further with you. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to bring up is I wanted to say, you know, when I got to talk to our insider friend, is when we look at these PCR tests that are being done, a lot of people on the net have said, hey, there's all kinds of nano at the end, that they're putting that in you. And he was adamant that no, that's not necessarily the case. You can see how that might have been mistaken, you know, in certain tests we've done of things that people have looked at. But he said what it is that these tests, about the worst thing you'll see in there is that there's a manipulation of the ethanol dioxide, so that you can tweak it out in some places with these certain batches that are sent out, with these certain official issued tests, so that they are so sensitive that even a particle that's floating around the air will trigger the test. So that's why you get all these false positives. So you could have that to kind of, you know, steer the numbers left and right as a part of, you know, whatever the official narrative was, right? But essentially, I mean, these things are out there. You know, we know that, you know, I know many of you watching this, maybe you've had it, you've caught it before. I know I've had it before. And you know, when I had caught Corona, you know, I had lost the smell and taste for a month. You know, I know it's real. You know, you have it out there.
I had it for 3 months. I know it's real. So
yeah, you know, you go through it and you get your immunity and everything. So, you know, it's interesting that we see this thing passing through, but what we got to realize, and from what I'm being told, is that, of course, this is just the beginning. We've talked about how if you watch what Ray Kurzweil over at Google's Alphabet is saying, you know, he's talking about, you know, the future of, you know, this technology being brought in at a genetic level. You know, we're looking at a big changeover in what we're doing, and everything about human life is changing in the next 15 years. And that includes your health, that includes your body. And that doesn't mean that you have to comply. There's going to be, as I've been told, just like it predicts in the days of the Bible, it says this, like it ironically says this in the book of the Apocalypse, which is actually a retelling of the Atlantis story. It's an ancient story of something that happened on Earth a long time ago. So we might be, you know, going through certain things that we've gone through before. Hopefully we get it right this time. But there's going to be people that live on the outskirts of town that aren't going to be complying with, you know, what we currently see with, you know, this immunity passport system, which is going to evolve very quickly into biometrics and biosynthetics. And some of the interesting things I was told is that the two main ones that you see out there in the MR and the first letter of the alphabet category, you see the one that starts with a P and the one that starts with an M, right?
Yeah, Aunt Myrna.
Aunt Myrna, that's right. So with that one, those two that you see, you also hear that they have to be stored at minus 20 degrees Celsius and minus 60 degrees Celsius. So you have these two that are in really cold temperatures. And one of the things that I was told by the folks I was talking to that is causing problems with those, even though you are getting billions of nanoparticles, and we're going to talk about that in a moment, and why that is sort of becoming the norm, and you're going to see more of that. But with those, why they're right now, those are the T model forward of this technology. And because they have to be in such cold temperatures, some of them are really, like, the side effects that people had or reactions, those are coming from what's in the adjuvant. So you're seeing like minute amounts of antifreeze and stuff that was, when they were looking over at how these were put together, that there's things that will change about them in the future. And I'm not endorsing them. I'm not saying that they're great or anything, but I'm just saying that as far as those, people don't know the full story yet about how those nanoparticles are going to be used. And there's going to be people out there that see something like this and they're going to laugh and they're going to say, well, what is he talking about? We see this nanobacteria and it just makes a change. Well, I was told that the reason it has to be so cold by the time it hits your body, which is warm, is that our bodies give off 100 watts. And that's actually quite a lot of energy. So that fires up and sort of powers these and turns them on. And essentially they're kind of, if you want to say, they're activated in you, and they never stop. They're always going to be active. But okay, essentially,
let's clear one thing up. The Aunt Myrna is not necessarily the single agent for delivery of this. There are many agents for the delivery of these nanobots, right?
Exactly. That's what I was just getting at with these. I'm glad you brought that up. So with these, that's sort of the early stage of what you're seeing with that right now. But you're going to find that as we move forward in the next 5 years, even, you're going to find these, not only are you getting these in your food, but they're going to be in everything, in your juice cap lid. They're going to be.
Let's cut to the quick. We're all filled with them right now.
Yeah. And just by walking around, you're getting them, and you're getting them from exposure everywhere. So essentially, there are ways that these can be fine-tuned with resonance and changes remotely. And these are kind of, if you want to look at them like an operating system. So we're going to have them also in the rubber of our tires. We're going to have a lot of stuff in them. But essentially, what's going to happen is that they're going to have very soon these different types of transdermal tattoos. And we talked about this. This is something that would just absorb into your skin. It's like, it'll be like a little disc that you just put on you. And then when your body is scanned with the light, they'll know exactly, you won't be able to fake if you had a different, immunization or not, but you'll be able to scan which ones you've had, what's wrong with your body, regenerating your organs, looking what's wrong with you. But on another hand, I want to say that I did a presentation with our good friend, Daniel Brinkley. And if you don't know who Daniel Brinkley is, everyone, if you've never seen Saved by the Light or read his book, get his book. He had a near-death experience, and you go back to 1975. You have this experience, and he was struck by lightning. He was dead for 28 minutes, and he saw what was going to happen in the future. Chernobyl. The fall of the wall going into the Soviet Union. He saw these. He saw this, Jay. Have you ever talked to him about this? How he saw what was going to happen? There was going to be a virus, and then there was going to be a chip. Do you remember that?
Well, he was the star of my film Infinity, so we're good friends. I've known him for 30 years, and yeah, I know all about. Got to get him on the show too, by the way.
Got to get him on the show. He and I did a talk, and it was we were out in Las Vegas. We were out in Laughlin last year, or was it a few months ago? And we did this talk, and when we were there, he was talking about what was also, and I think it's chapter 5 of his book, if you look it up, and he literally describes this, but he said something that was very eerie. He said that eventually, because this virus was going to get out of control, that people would want an easier solution. So there would be a chip, which definitely sounds like what I've been told is transdermal. That's very easy. You just put on you, it absorbs, and it's just kind of keeps track of everything with you. And for the average person, it would be great. Some people, he said that he saw in his vision, that all his visions came true. He said that some people would be on the outskirts of town, that just like it is today, they wouldn't be able to go into a store and buy milk or bread, or they wouldn't be able to like go hang out with the regular folks or go to movie theaters. They could just, be on the outskirts of things, but, they were conditioned to being, living in the mountains or whatever it is. So we do know that that is an applicable scenario, but he said that for those that went along with it, if somebody did not comply, let's say there was someone that would step out of line, that there was a way to basically just turn off vitality. Of course, if you have a digital currency attached to that, we know that's where it's headed, that could be just someone stepped out of line and wasn't, doing as they were told, that would be shut off, so that's a possibility in what we're talking about with this technology.
Hack
right?
the system. Yeah, they could hack the system and kill you. I mean, they could. Let's face it. They could use the nanobots to get rid of their enemies. Just being real here. I'm just telling you the way it is. I don't want this future. I know that you're right. I'm probably filled with nanobots. I think we all are. And I think that what you're saying is inevitable, actually.
So here's the other side of this we can look at with this. In the one side, we have already got this taking place right now. And, where we're going to move with this is that the average person is going to move forward with their life into a very futuristic world. We are going to create a world that will be good. I mean, we're here for a reason. Everyone chose to be here for a reason. And there's the old saying that we see that the universe or God is forever, using the forces of evil for good, if you want to call it that. So if you have one group in the world who are trying to control everybody or waging wars or something, eventually that turns around and evolves into something good. So what I was told is that in about 25 years from now, things are going to be quite different. That even in 4 or 5 years from now, things are going to be shockingly different. So what's going to happen is that the world is not going to end. Your life is going to go on. You are going to be in a position where most certainly I've been told again and again that you're going to have an ethical reproduction certificate. If you want to have a family, that's going to start in 5 years. You're going to start hearing about mass infertility and sterility. And it's already starting. And this has been something that's been taking place already to us on many different levels. We're going to move into a place where in 25 years from now, you're going to have life extension. Eating and drinking will be optional, but you'll have it. You'll have the ability to go into space if you want. You're going to have, things are going to be much different in 15 years from now, where we're going to have a world where agriculture, lawyers, and accountants, I was told, are some of the jobs that you're going to see replaced by AI and robots. In fact, you're going to see so many robots and AI that we're already using, by the way. A lot of people are so scared of AI, but really AI isn't the one that you're thinking of. A lot of people out there are worried about something called synthetic intelligence out there, taking us over. You're already using AI. It's called machine learning. You're using it every day in your cell phones. You're using it in your computers, your search engine, using it on your camera, right?
Zoom is AI.
Oh, it's all AI. But the two engines that we're developing right now that are the most main ones, Alexa and Siri, those are becoming your AI and robots very, very quickly in the future. That's going to be your sort of basis for this that we find. So with that, one of the things I was told in about 25 years, we're going to encounter people having big debates over giving them human rights, like saying, should these robots be our slaves? Already where I am out here in Budapest, in Hungary, we have robot cafes here. I'm not kidding you. Look this up on Google right now. You'll be blown away. We have these robots that come up to you and talk to you. They take your order. They get your drink. They sanitize your tables. They move their arms and their eyes. They're in the malls. I was astounded when I first saw this. We walked into the mall here, Jay, and there is a robot like the Jetsons. It's moving its arms and blinking its eyes, talking to me, and it has a display here, and it blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. We have this.
The great resignation that's going on right now, all the people that aren't returning to work, this is all part of the plan to create automation on everything, on every level, all run by AI.
Absolutely. You're going to see it more and more. You're going to see it at gas stations, service stations. You're going to see it in places like fast food.
Arthur C. Clarke once said that the ultimate goal of technology is total unemployment.
That's where it's headed. And that leads to our next area, what they want to do with these centralized digital currencies, which we've been talking about for a while. And that's where we're going to have, maybe whether it's 24, 25, somewhere around that, this next few years, we're going to have, in the next 3-4 years, we're going to have massive economic changes that are going to start. And you're going to find more of this stuff that is going to become what you and I described before as a universal basic income. But it's not going to work like people think. It is going to be like a credit system. The very wealthy folks on the planet, they will keep their resources and the way we look at money and things, they will keep that into a particular structure. But the average person that doesn't have the means to create that sort of aspect about them, they're going to have a certain amount of credits that they can get, and they will be living in a different type of reality. So the system that we're going to move into is it's going to be very strange.
Well, yeah, it's going to be the social credit score that they're using in China, and you're going to you talk against the state, you're going to lose accounts, and if you talk good, then you'll rise up. And so there's going to be this conformity that is, I think, necessary for the emergence of the type 1 civilization, and definitely necessary to move into a type 2 civilization. And so it's kind of a wistful thing you're saying. We're saying goodbye to this world that we all knew, and this new world is being thrust upon us. And we kind of wax nostalgic about what world that we're leaving. But then you also have to ask yourself, was it good of a world? I mean, I don't think it was. I'm not sure the modern world.
That's the thing. There are going to be some sacrifices. There's going to be some payoffs, because we're going to become highly advanced. And if we go back into what the Neoplatonic thinkers said, like Heraclitus said, that the only thing constant is change itself. Change is the only changeless thing. So we decided to be born here, and no matter what you believe, where you are on the spiritual spectrum, I want to tell you that each and every single one of you chose to be born here at this time. So there's a very real reason that you're here. We're all going through this. None of us are excluded from this and the challenges that we're facing because of the folks that have put this into play. But with that being said, we're going to see some interesting things. So one thing you will see is that HIV, for example, AIDS, is an obsolete biogenetic technology. It was put there for eugenics and population control. In fact, if you do your homework and you go and Google, actually don't use Google, use any of the other search engines, because a lot of this
DuckDuckGo.
Exactly. If you use any of the alternative search engines that aren't censored, you will find some very interesting things that have been said potentially in your search about Lytton Pharmaceuticals and what Lytton had done in these particular areas of research that you might all find very interesting. So you're going to find that even starting next year, you're going to hear stuff like that HIV is obsolete, that has been cured, because it's no longer in the equation. You have ways that this is much more efficient for managing world's populations and changing it from where we're seeing this go. Again, we were talking about stuff like ethical reproduction certificates. We're talking about a big change in how human gene expression is there. And if you go back and listen to what we said in those earlier shows about the CRISPR technology, about how this stuff works in the programming of the nitrogenous bases. You have a programming language. Think about that. You have a remote control programming language that you can just program certain groups or say, okay, we want this population to change over here or this. You have a much more biologically and technologically savvy group here that's managing things. And, before we move into the technological areas, they have a great history of mapping of our human genome. I mean, look at all the 23andMe and all the structures that we've looked all the way across us. We've had humans even in the Americas for 500,000 years. And the 1960s, they were discovering that. We know there's all different types of hominids. We've had all kinds of changes that have happened to us. So now we're at a place where we're starting to understand, where does this aggressive gene over here fit? Where does this fit? And that's why this is going to change. And that's also why even next year, when COVID is stepped down, and it will be stepped down due to certain pills they have coming out. They've had the pills for a while, but, you know, on a pharmaceutical grade one that's available. You know, they have various shots that are coming out. But one of the things that you're going to start to see is that this isn't over yet with these immunological privileges. This is also mapping out zones and changing immune privileges across the planet as a part of how this gets rolled out. Again, I was also told that coming up, you would hear about something called the Marburg virus. And the Marburg virus, it came from Uganda, and it's like a minor version of Ebola. And also, you heard of the Nipah virus, right?
Yep. Yep.
So you know, Jay, before we get past that about what these are, what's the changes are on many different levels, I just want to say that, you know, well, I'm not endorsing any of these, but, you know, I know that there's some people that have the freedom right now to live in an area where they don't need to take one of these things. And, you know, they don't have to take one, or if they found a way to avoid it as a health choice. And then there's some out there that have to take it. You know, you live in an area where you put food on the table, or you've already taken it, and you just don't have that choice. I was told that probably the safest one that I've been told about for over a year or two, the safest one that's been delayed in its developments, is the Nova one coming out. Have you heard that?
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have Aunt Myrna. Yeah, it doesn't have Aunt Myrna.
Yeah, it's really an old school one. It's just like the ones you've seen for years and years. So that one is sort of the spot that we're seeing at the end of this thing, and that one deals with multiple influenzas and everything. So that one is and again, I'm not endorsing it. I'm not endorsing any of them, but it is, from what I was told by my insider guy, that he said if you had to take one, that was the one he told me would be the safest of the lot of them. With that being said,
let's just think of, I just want to make some things clear, causing a lot of fear here. What he's saying, what they're saying is that we're probably not going to get sick anymore, because the bodies and programmed, and through the CRISPR technology also, to remove the things that cause long-term diseases and things in people. And the nanobots will be used to chew up cancer cells, arteries, unblock arteries, and the AI will know exactly where to go at the exact moment to do this thing. So yes, it sounds horrifying. It sounds like some kind of Frankenstein thing. And I don't know if I want it, but I do understand the benefits of it and why it's appealing.
I feel exactly the same way. You know, I feel very lucky that I've been able to live, you know, my life pretty organically up to this point. I do enjoy, you know, technology and, you know, looking at our advancements and where we've gone. I have a great book by Kittler. It's called Optical Media. And we look at semiotics and the change of communication and stuff, about all the things that have changed us, whether it's the alphabet, whether it's the mirror, whether it's the telephone, our language, all this type of technology that's changed us. It's fascinating. And look how Facebook has changed us. And I want to get into that next, the metaverse, talking about what that is and why that's so important right now. But with that, you know, I'm not out there endorsing transhumanism. Like you said, I don't know if I want to, you know, move into these parts of our future. I quite like having an organic, natural self. But, you know, this nanoparticle future, you know, where you're regenerating organs, that you have this scan, you know, as we move forward in the future, and we are moving forward in that direction, it's already begun. It's going to happen very, very quickly. that where you're going to end up in the future is that all this stuff will be quite normal. Just think back. I mean, how many people freaked out about 5G? There was a lot of people talking about how bad 5G was, and they were making thousands of posts about it on Facebook. Now, everyone I talk to has the new iPhone 5G. They have the new Samsung Galaxy 21 plus 5G. You know, they're all getting the newest 5G because they've moved past that. You're going to have nanoparticles in the rubber of your tires, like we said. So you go along driving your car down the road, you get that puncture, the car will instantly know, or in some cases replicate and self-repair. So we're going to move into a future where people will have longer lifespans. You will have an amazing set of opportunities. It'll be very futuristic. We are going to be going into other places, and we will move forward. We have a great, exciting, amazing future ahead. And let's make no mistake about that we do have a destiny, and it's going to be very exciting. And a lot of the problems of yesterday will go away. However, there's going to be some changes in the world and things that will be shocking over the next 15 years. And I know not all of us are going to like it at first when it happens, but it's already in motion, so to speak. And if we're prepared for it ahead of time.
Done deal. Done deal. It's a done deal.
It's a done deal. It's a done deal. And there's a lot of guys out there saying, this is going to happen. This savior is going to come down and stop it in its tracks. Well, that might be so, but it's already in motion. So here's the other thing that's going to happen that is going to be very shocking for people, that we're going to move very quickly in our technology away from using cell phones and wearables. And when we talk about chips and, where we're going with that, you're not going to have a hole drilled into your head and a microchip put in there. That's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is that, as it's been told to me and shown, you're going to have this piece that you're going to snort up your nose, and it's going to go up your nose, and it's going to basically be an augmented display, an optical receiver. And eventually this is going to also tap into your neural networks, and all those nanoparticles in your body that are already there also act with all these other things like lights that scan your body, the transdermal tattoos. It all kind of works together on some level. But with this, when this piece is in you, you're going to have the ability to answer a phone call with a wave of your hand. You could be in the movie theater watching a movie with people. No one will know you're taking a call on a display. You're going to have the ability to have a receiver for not only sound. So you want to listen to your Spotify or your Apple Music, you're going to be able to hear it through there. You're going to be able to show people what you're seeing. You want to share the living room. There's going to be virtual sex, roller coasters. You want to go around the world. And this is exactly what they're talking about with this metaverse. Everybody, including Microsoft, Facebook, Google, everybody is in a race to get this because they know that cell phones and wearable technology is over. It's all going into the neural networks. It's in the optical receivers. That's where we're headed with it.
Well, Johnny, I think you managed to scare the living hell out of people, but also inject some kind of optimism into the thing. So that's kind of a very alchemical way to approach it. I personally, I'm not sure about any of this, except for that I know you're right. I know this is where we're headed. I can't do anything about it. But I also knew, like in the early 60s, that there was going to be an internet and personal computers. Because I was reading Arthur C. Clarke, and he was all saying this. How quickly we grew to accept computers and PCs and the internet. Well, that's how this is going to be with this. It's just going to be something that at first we're like, what is this? And then we accept it. And then we realize that actually it is making our life better. I mean, we can talk from Budapest to Southern Colorado in instant time. And that's pretty amazing. And I don't care what anybody says. And so I just want to close by saying that I don't think there's any way to stop what is going on. And we have to find a way to spiritually incorporate what is about to happen.
I agree with you, and I want to bring it back into, the area of Colorado where you were talking about, because there are some other interesting things, as you know, that our mutual friend that we have that has been in this realm of working behind the scenes for a very long time. He's gone to some very interesting places, and one of them in Colorado is quite fascinating because I was asking him a question that our friend Bob wanted to know about before to me as well, that when you look at these deep underground military bases that get drilled into, you know, what happens to all the dirt? What happens to all the material? And he said, well, in the old days, you know, he had this limestone, and the limestone would get trucked away on these railway tracks and everything, and it would get, you know, hauled away and used for building supplies and everything. We said, if it's interesting, if you go to the Denver airport, the murals actually used to be even worse than they are now. But you see at the Denver airport, you have that crazy, you know, horse out in front with the flashing eyes. You've documented that as well, right?
I'm the guy that actually found it. I'm the guy that originally came out about the high weirdness at the Denver airport. I went there in '94, saw the murals and with how much they matched the stuff that I was looking at with the Cross of Henday. And then I actually talked to them. They were down in the elevators and went way down into the underground camp. And yeah, it's a part of continuity of government. And there's trains going from the Denver airport into the Rocky Mountains.
That, you know, that was very, very interesting because I brought that up with him, and he said that he was down there, you know, in these programs and places that he's been. And he said that there are these train carts that could hold these giant platforms that, you know, you could put tanks on and everything. They could go like 100 miles an hour, go very, very quickly. And about, I believe, what is it, 60 miles? What is it? West of there. So where's the Rockies from there?
Rockies are about 40 miles west of the airport.
Yeah. So you go out there, you get the Rockies. And he said in there, this blew me away. He said, this is the default capital of the United States. He said, there's a backup. Let's say the United States was under siege. You know, the chiefs of commanders, the president, everyone would go in there. That's like the second White House. It's the default capital. There's a 2,000 mile long access point in there. There's another one that goes into the underground areas out by Canada, which I've discussed before with you, that there is something called Canada's Area 51 that started to be built at the time of World War II. So there's a very, very interesting access point. And, you know, one of the other things that he told me was really interesting in these programs, he said that one of the things they carry everywhere with them, no matter where they go, and they go to some very, very interesting places, as you know, that people don't even begin to fathom. He said that they would carry this, they would carry Listerine. And he said Listerine, and now I've started to carry this Listerine. I got it after I heard this. He said that Listerine basically is one of those things you can use for cuts and bruises. If you're going to if there's like a cold or infection, he says they'd rub it in their nose and on their tongue. He said the different constituents in it, it can even be used for eczema. It's anti-inflammatory with the menthol. He told me itches and scratches, inflammation. He said it's the ultimate first aid trick in these areas and stuff like that. He'll say to me, it's just so wild and amazing.
Funny that you bring that up. Because I ran that past one of my genius friends.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't have the exact chemical that's in it, but he ran through it, and I wish he texted me, but I don't have my the right phone with me right now. But he isolated what the chemical is in Listerine that does all those magical things.
Abus oil. There's a typo. It's
a chemical. It's a compound
that's
chemical.
What I was told.
Yeah, and it's a super magical healing thing that people in the know that create healing potions in.
That's it. I mean, the interesting thing that we're going to see, you know, moving forward is that there's a lot of advancements for humanity. There's a lot of great things that we could look forward to. One of those is going to be knowledge, you know, so we're going to have more knowledge than we've ever had before. And that's going to grow exponentially. As you know now, shows like Reality Check, we're finding out things about our ancient religions, spirituality. Our science is now confirming what we've been talking about for a long time. We're going to move to life extension. We're going to have a beautiful life to look forward to. And I'd say, once we make it through this period, I don't think we have to worry about, things like just, for no reason there being casualties. However, what we will have is that there will be changes in the world as we know it. So I'd say, you asked what can we do to prepare for it spiritually. I ask myself that all the time. And our mutual friend, Michelle Hood, she told me, Johnny, you know what you need to do is you need to focus on getting in touch with nature. And I truly believe that anytime that you feel that there's too much craziness in the world, go back into your heart, go back into nature, and get in touch with the true spiritual essence of who we all are.
Yeah, I take a walk in the woods every day. It's the best thing I do every day. So I highly recommend that you do that. Michelle's absolutely right. Get back to nature, get back to what's natural, and meditate and pray. That's all I can say.
Meditate.
Hey, Johnny, it's been really good to have you on. I'm sure that this is going to be really controversial. I don't really care. I want to get it out, and I've never been one to shirk responsibility for telling people what's going on, and that's why I have you on. And you're a great guest, and really appreciate it. And I really want people to go to GaiaTV.com, watch your show. Mystery Teachings, really good show. Sid Goldberg did a great job producing it. And thank you, Gaia, for putting it out. And thank you, Johnny, for coming on my show.
Thank you for having me, Jay. Thanks for the kind words. And keep watching Reality Check. Like, subscribe, and share it with your friends.